So many of us carry our pasts like a heavy backpack. We replay old stories, recycle old emotions, and re-experience the same pain as if time has no power to move us forward. And yet, science shows us that the past only lives in one place, our memory. And memory is simply the re-firing of neural circuits in the brain. When you think of that old betrayal, that loss, that mistake, your brain doesn't know it's over. It believes it's happening right now. Every thought produces a chemical, and that chemical creates a feeling. That feeling signals the body, and the body reminds the brain to think more of the same thoughts. This cycle hardwires your past into your biology. You're not just remembering, you're reliving. But here is the powerful truth. The moment you become aware of this loop, you are no longer the program. You are the consciousness observing it. And when you are conscious, you can choose. Letting go is not about forgetting. It's about breaking the neurological and emotional bond between you and that experience. It's about taking your attention, your life force energy, away from what no longer serves you. The science of neuroplasticity proves that when you stop feeding those circuits with your attention, they begin to prune away. Your brain literally rewires itself. The chemistry of suffering, anger, and guilt begins to lose its hold on your cells. Your body stops being addicted to the past. And in that space, something new is born. You begin to feel lighter, clearer, more expansive. You create room for joy, for gratitude, for possibility. You step into the present moment, not as a prisoner of what happened, but as the creator of what can be. So tonight, I invite you to become the scientist of your own life. Notice when you are rehearsing an old memory. Catch the thought, interrupt the feeling, and remind yourself, that's the past, and I am free to choose now. Close your eyes and imagine cutting the cord to that old story. Breathe in deeply, and as you exhale, feel your body releasing the chemistry of the past. With every breath, install a new thought. I am more than my history. I am creating my destiny. That is the true science of letting go. It's not mystical. It's measurable. And when you master it, you step into a future that is no longer defined by who you were, but by who you decide to become. The past does not exist anywhere outside of us. It is not floating in the air. It is not embedded in the world around us. It exists only as memory imprinted in the neural architecture of our brain. Every time we recall an old event, we are literally refiring the same circuits, replaying the same patterns, and re-experiencing the same feelings that came with it. Think about that. Your mind cannot tell the difference between a situation unfolding in real time and one that you are vividly remembering. The brain believes that what you are imagining is happening right now, and the body responds accordingly. This is why so many people feel stuck. They say, I just can't move on, not realizing that moving on has nothing to do with time. It has everything to do with energy and attention. If your attention remains anchored to the memory of who hurt you, what you lost, or what you regret, then the past continues to live in the present. And each time you give energy to that thought, you reinforce the neural pathway that keeps it alive. Science shows us that neurons that fire together wire together. That means the more you revisit an old story, the more those connections strengthen. Over time, the brain becomes conditioned to automatically call up that memory, and the body becomes conditioned to feel the same old emotions: anger, sadness, guilt, resentment. Eventually, you don't even need to consciously think about the past anymore. Your body has memorized the emotions so well that it begins to live as if the past is happening now. You wake up in the morning, and before you even get out of bed, your body is already in the chemical state of yesterday. You're not just recalling the past, you're reliving it. This is where the cycle begins to trap us. Because the body feels that emotion, it sends a signal back to the brain, telling it to think more thoughts equal to that state. Those thoughts create the same chemicals, which reinforce the same feelings, which then generate the same thoughts. The loop keeps us chained to the past, and soon, our identity becomes the story of what happened rather than the truth of who we are. But here is the liberating realization: the past only has power if you keep giving it your attention. The memory exists, but the suffering is sustained by the focus of your awareness. The moment you redirect your attention away from the old circuit and bring it to the present moment, the past begins to lose its grip. Those neural connections, without energy to sustain them, start to weaken. The brain begins to change. The chemistry of the body begins to change. Understanding this truth is the first step toward freedom. You don't erase the past. You simply stop rehearsing it. You reclaim your energy, and you use it to design a new future. The past may have shaped you, but it does not define you. It only lives where you allow it to live, in your mind. Every thought you think is not just an idea passing through your mind. It is a biological event. When you have a thought, your brain releases chemicals that signal your body. These chemicals become emotions, and those emotions generate a feeling. That feeling doesn't just remain invisible. It imprints itself into the body, influencing the way you act, the way you perceive, and the way you make choices. Thoughts create chemistry, and chemistry becomes experience. Now imagine this cycle when it comes to the past. You recall a painful event, perhaps a betrayal, a failure, or a moment of deep loss. The thought triggers the release of stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline. Your body reacts as if the event is happening again in real time. Your heart rate quickens, your muscles tense, and your body prepares for survival. That state becomes a familiar emotional signature. And because it feels familiar, you unconsciously seek it out again and again, simply by rehearsing the memory. The brain is not separate from the body in this process. The brain creates the chemistry, and the body becomes conditioned to it. Over time, the body begins to crave the same emotions, just like an addiction. If you've lived in guilt for years, your body expects guilt. If you've lived in anger, your cells are tuned to anger. If you've lived in sadness, your biology normalizes sadness. This is why it's so difficult for many people to break free. They are not just mentally tied to the past, their body is chemically addicted to it. The cycle looks like this. A thought produces a chemical, the chemical creates a feeling, and the feeling reminds the brain to think the same thought. This loop of thought and emotion is like running a program that you don't even realize is operating. Day after day, it conditions your state of being until you identify with it. You don't just have thoughts of sadness. You become a sad person. You don't just think angry thoughts. You live as an angry personality. And yet, it all began with a single thought that triggered chemistry. But here's the empowering truth. If thoughts can create this chemical trap, new thoughts can free you from it. The brain is neuroplastic. It changes with repeated focus and practice. When you intentionally choose elevated thoughts, ones of gratitude, joy, forgiveness, and possibility, you instruct the brain to release a new chemistry. Those chemicals send a new signal to the body. The body begins to feel differently, lighter, freer. That new feeling then inspires more of the same thoughts, and a new cycle begins to take root. So the key lies in awareness. The moment you catch yourself in the loop, you are no longer unconsciously running it. You can interrupt it. You can breathe deeply, redirect your attention, and consciously choose a thought that creates a different chemical state. With repetition, the body no longer craves the past emotions. It begins to feel at home in a new emotional environment. And that's when real transformation takes place. Awareness is the doorway to freedom. Most people live on autopilot, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and repeating the same behaviors without ever questioning them. They believe life is simply happening to them, when in reality they are running a program coded by the past. But the moment you become aware of the program, you step outside of it. You are no longer the thought. You are the one observing the thought. And in that gap, you reclaim the power of choice. Think about how your mind works when you're lost in a memory. You don't question it, you just feel it. Your body reacts, your mood changes, and you are carried away by the same emotional currents as before. But when awareness enters, It interrupts the automatic chain reaction. You suddenly realize, I am not this memory. I am the one noticing it. That recognition alone begins to dissolve its power. You are no longer unconsciously caught in the loop. You are consciously watching it unfold. This is why mindfulness is such a transformative practice. When you observe your thoughts without judgment, you create space between you and the story. In that space, you are no longer defined by the old emotions. You don't have to react. You don't have to believe every thought your brain offers. You can choose a new response. And with each conscious choice, you weaken the hold of the old program and strengthen the circuits of a new self. Awareness is not about fighting the past. It is about shining light on it. The moment you see the loop begins to lose power. Imagine a shadow in a dark room. It looks real, it feels overwhelming. But when you turn on the light, you realize it was never solid. Awareness is that light. It reveals that much of what we suffer is not happening now. It is just the brain recycling the old. Science tells us that when you observe your own thoughts, the brain activates higher regions like the prefrontal cortex, which are associated with decision-making, self-regulation, and creativity. That means awareness literally changes your brain state. It shifts you from survival into creation, from unconscious reaction into conscious choice. You move from being a prisoner of the past to becoming the architect of the present. The body may still crave the old emotions. The mind may still offer the familiar story. But the moment you notice it, you are free to choose differently. You can breathe, pause, and direct your attention toward the future you want to create instead of the past you want to escape. That single choice, repeated again and again, rewires the brain and reconditions the body. Awareness is the starting point of transformation. Without it, we live as victims of habit. With it, we awaken to the truth that we are not our past, we are not our emotions, we are not even our thoughts. We are the consciousness behind them. And from that place, true freedom becomes possible. The brain is not fixed. For centuries, people believed that once we reached adulthood, our brain was set in stone, unchangeable. But modern science has proven something revolutionary. The brain is plastic. It can rewire itself. It can break down old connections and build new ones. This process, called neuroplasticity, is at the very core of letting go of the past. When you keep rehearsing the same thoughts and emotions, you keep wiring the same circuits together. Those circuits become highways in the brain, automatic, efficient, and hard to ignore. That's why it feels so natural to fall back into old stories. Your brain has literally carved a pathway to them. But the beauty of neuroplasticity is that the moment you stop feeding those old circuits with your attention, they begin to weaken. Neurons that fire apart wire apart. What was once a dominant pathway begins to dissolve. At the same time, when you redirect your focus toward new thoughts, thoughts of gratitude, possibility, and freedom, you begin to carve new pathways. It may feel awkward at first because the brain isn't used to it. But with repetition, those new circuits grow stronger. Soon, what once felt unfamiliar becomes natural, and what once felt natural begins to fade. This is how you literally change the hardware of your brain. But it doesn't stop there. Every thought creates a chemical, and those chemicals influence the body. When you live in anger or guilt for long enough, your body becomes chemically addicted to those emotions. It memorizes them so deeply that even when the mind wants to change, the body pulls it back. This is why letting go often feels like withdrawal. You are breaking an addiction, not just to an idea, but to a state of being. The good news is that as you rewire your brain, you recondition your body. By consistently choosing new elevated thoughts and emotions, the body begins to feel differently. It learns to feel at home in peace, in joy, in gratitude. Slowly, the addiction to suffering dissolves, and the chemistry of healing begins to replace the chemistry of survival. Think of it this way. Every time you notice an old thought and refuse to give it attention, you are pruning a wire in your brain. Every time you choose a new thought and feel the emotion of that new future, you are wiring a new circuit. With enough repetition, your brain no longer reflects who you were. It reflects who you are becoming. That is the true science of transformation. Letting go, then, it is not a passive act. It is an active rewiring. It is choosing moment after moment to starve the old circuits and feed the new ones. It is trusting that your brain and body are designed to adapt, to heal, to change. And when you do this with intention, you stop living as the effect of your past biology and begin living as the cause of your future reality. When you finally loosen your grip on the past, something extraordinary begins to happen. You create space for the new. The mind and body are not empty containers. They are filled with the thoughts and emotions we continually feed them. If your mental and emotional landscape has been dominated by regret, guilt, anger, or sadness, there is little room for anything else to grow. Letting go is not just about releasing pain. It's about opening a doorway to new possibilities. Think of your energy as a form of currency. If you keep spending it on old stories, you have nothing left to invest in your future. The moment you reclaim that energy by refusing to dwell in the past, you suddenly have the power to create something different. You begin to direct your life force toward thoughts and emotions that elevate you rather than imprison you. And what fills that newly opened space? Joy begins to emerge, not the fleeting kind tied to external circumstances, but a deeper, quieter joy that comes from being present. Gratitude grows because you are no longer clouded by resentment. Inspiration arises because your mind is no longer cluttered with repetitive old narratives. Even creativity, which had been stifled by emotional baggage, starts to flow again. Your body also feels the shift. When you let go of stress-filled memories, your nervous system relaxes. The constant production of stress hormones begins to slow down, and the body moves out of survival mode into a state of balance. In this state, your immune system strengthens, your heart rate steadies, and your body begins to heal. It is as though by emptying out the old energy, you are giving your biology permission to restore itself. This is why people who practice true letting go often say they feel lighter. They are not speaking metaphorically. They are literally carrying less emotional weight. That lightness is the sensation of energy being freed up, energy that can now be used for growth, for creativity, for love. It is the natural state of being once the burden of the past is released. But you must be intentional. The old stories will try to creep back in because the body remembers. When they do, you can gently remind yourself, this no longer belongs to me. I choose to create space for something greater. With practice, this becomes easier. Eventually, the new feelings of joy, gratitude, and possibility take root so deeply that the old emotions lose their appeal. Imagine your life as a garden. If weeds of anger and guilt have been taking up all the space, the flowers of love and peace cannot grow. Letting go is the act of pulling those weeds, of clearing the soil, of making room for something beautiful to bloom. And the more space you create, the more abundance you allow. When you release the past, you do not just close a chapter, you open a whole new book. And within that book, every page is blank, waiting for you to write a new story, one aligned with who you truly want to be. True freedom begins when you realize you are no longer bound by history. For most people, their identity is built on what has already happened, on the stories they tell themselves about failure, loss, or pain. They wake up each day and unconsciously project yesterday into today, assuming tomorrow will look the same. But when you make the conscious decision to stop living as a prisoner of the past, you step into the power of creation. You stop defining yourself by what was and begin defining yourself by what can be. Every moment, life offers you a choice to recycle the old or to create the new. If you choose the old, you relive the same emotions, repeat the same actions, and recreate the same experiences. The past becomes the future and nothing changes. But if you choose the new, even in small ways, you begin to write a different script. Your thoughts generate new emotions, your emotions inspire new behaviors, and those behaviors lead to new outcomes. Slowly, your reality shifts to match the new state of being you are cultivating. This is not just a matter of wishful thinking. It is science. The brain and body are designed to respond to your focus. When you imagine a future filled with possibility, and you feel the emotion of that future as if it were already real, you are instructing your brain to build the circuits of that reality. You are signaling your body to experience it ahead of time. And with repetition, your biology begins to align with your vision. You are no longer living in the shadow of who you were. You are embodying who you are becoming. The shift happens in the present moment. The past is memory, the future is imagination, but right now is the only place you can choose. Each time you catch yourself rehearsing an old story and instead choose a thought aligned with your desired future, you take back your creative power. Each time you feel the emotion of freedom, gratitude, or love in place of resentment or regret, you are teaching your body to live in a new reality. Over time, the old emotions no longer define you. You stop waking up as the same version of yourself, and you begin waking up as someone new. This is what it means to build the future consciously. You are not waiting for external circumstances to change before you feel better. You are changing your inner state first, and then watching reality rearrange itself around that new frequency. The moment you live this way, you are no longer at the mercy of the past. You are the author of your destiny. So the invitation is simple but profound. Stop letting history dictate your story. Stop identifying with wounds that no longer serve you. Begin to feel today the emotions of the life you wish to create. Hold that vision, nurture it, live it in your mind and body, and soon it will manifest in your world. That is the essence of true freedom, not to escape the past, but to consciously design the future.